So sometimes they will come up with a pitch essentially for a product. And if we're on board, then we try to work with the liquid we have to meet that vision. I think one of my jobs is to make their job very easy and to make them not have to work as hard. And I don't want them working very hard, because if they're having to overmarket a product, we didn't do a good job. And so I think our most successful stuff is like when you look at 13 or 15 or 17-year-old bottle in a bond or Russell's 98 or all these, the marketing story is like, man, this is good.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. I'm Kenny Coleman.
Ryan Cecil here.
And Fred Minnick.
And we are sitting down with somebody that's been a friend of the show for a very long time. Had him on. I need to probably pull up his other episodes here relatively soon as we start talking about this. But, you know, Wild Turkey has really cemented itself in bourbon lore. Everybody kind of knows about it. And, you know, this guy is one of the up-and-comers as we start talking about getting into this. So I'm excited to have Bruce back on the show today.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, too. Like, he's had such a, you know, obviously he comes from bourbon royalty. His dad is Eddie. His grandpa is Jimmy. But he's also carved his own path. You know, I remember seeing him at Tales of the Cocktail, hustling with bartenders, you know, bringing bottles, bringing ice, you know.
The bar back?
Yeah, I've seen him be a bar back.
Because I can't make a cocktail, so I
Yeah.
can do something.
It's just fun to see his growth patterns. And you know where he's at now, and he used to live in Texas, and now he's here.
Yeah, and then I was looking back, so the past episode, so he's got a few of them that he's been on here, right? So first he was on episode 175. That was when he was with not only his dad and his grandpa on that one, right? So that was back in 2018, and then we had episode 199. It was him as well as Joanne, who's actually in the audience today, but you're not going to hear her on the
She's
camera.
the legal team.
She's the legal team. She's here making sure
like,
Bruce doesn't say anything
Don't
bad.
screw up, brother. Been bailing you out my whole life.
And then episode 398, which aired back in February 23rd of 2023. So Bruce is now considered a four-timer.
Four-timer.
Oh,
Four-timer. How many of
Bourbon
those?
Wow.
Hit the slam, yeah.
Yeah.
Which one did we do
Pick
outside?
up your plaque outside.
We did the ones outside that were 175 and 199. That was when we were, you could hear all the trucks going by.
Yeah, we were out there by the station master's house under that tent.
Yeah.
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 That was one of my favorite episodes. I love that one.
It was great. And
You weren't even there for it. No, I'm kidding.
I do believe I was there, sir.
Yeah, he was. He was episode 175. I'm looking at the camera right now. But yeah, it's like I remember I think the limestone was like being harvested and sent over.
Limestone Rock Quarries down there.
Yeah.
And is that the last podcast Jimmy was ever on? It might be.
It might be. Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, it's one of those things that you know, we love to have folks like you on because you're able to kind of bring some fresh new life into this, and we love Jimmy. I think we've heard a lot of the stories he has to tell. I know he's probably got a few more in his back pocket though.
He's not telling those.
He's not telling those. Not on.
Those go to the grave.
Not with the
microphone.
not with the camera on anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. He's been trained to have a microphone in front of his face. He's not gonna say anything like that. But you know, we were just talking beforehand. Your title is the assistant master blender.
Associate.
Oh, associate.
Same difference.
Okay. Well,
He's got 2 more years
Yeah,
for his
how do
bachelor's.
you-
I don't know who I'm an associate to, but
Yeah, associate feels like it's more of like a master blender to be.
Like an apprentice
Whereas
or some.
this feels more like an apprentice kind of role, whereas like assistant is like go get my coffee.
yeah.
You know.
He's still a bar backing.
Which if
Yeah.
Dad asks, I have to do both.
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess kind of talk about what it's been like since that time we had you on last, and what have you been up to? And I know that you've definitely made some transitions in your role and what you're doing at Turkey.
Yeah, so first big change would have came about, I guess, right around the time the last episode would have happened. Probably 2-3 years ago now. They decided when I first moved back from Texas, which would have been right before the pandemic, I started to get more involved in product development. And then about 2-ish years ago, I went from being like a part of the team to kind of like the lead of the team. So
Did somebody have to die for you to do that, or
no, Dad just was like, "You want to do this? Cool." You know, I mean, he's been there for so long, and he's had his try a bunch of different stuff, and I think he saw this as a cool opportunity for me to get to do my own thing while, if anything's got his name on it, he's still in there approving it because he's not going to let me do everything I want, or everything would be way higher proof than he would like.
Is that true?
Yeah. And you'll start seeing coming out this year, our proofs are going to go up a little bit because I've got my hands in more stuff.
So get rid of 101. It's going to be Wild Turkey 108 now. Is that one?
Well, I think the TTB labels are already out there, so it's not like a huge secret, but we're going to go from our highest proof blend ever from 120 to jump up to 128 this year. And you'll start to see some more stuff, I think, between 120 and 130. We've got some really tasty stuff in that range right now.
Will love that.
It's so incredible because, to give some historical context here, this is a company that really made 86 proof, very, very famous. And, and for a short amount of time, 81 proof was pretty special for you all. And now to see you all have had some nice success with higher proof products, and, it's kind of cool. But it's like y'all are also you all move as fast as concrete when it comes to working a trend. You
got that right.
You wait a long time to jump on a trend.
Yep.
Why is that?
I think part of it is kind of the culture at the distillery. It's been built around Jimmy, and it's hard to change from that culture, especially when he's still there. And I mean, he made the whole operation, and he was always one that hated to chase trends. I mean, you can see that even when stuff like had to happen kind of in the industry, like single barrels, barrel proof, you can see he saw his buddies do it, and he waited 5 to 10 years before he did his.
Yeah.
I think that we're actually, for the first time in the last couple of years, at a point where we've got the company on board. I've got Dad and Jimmy on board. Like, we're all on board. The whole distillery's on board, and we're starting to be a little bit more on time with the stuff that we're looking to do. But we for sure have always been a little bit slow. I mean, when you look at other people doing stuff like secondary maturations or double oaked, that type of thing, using toasted barrels at the end, or super aged products or super high proof products. Yeah, we've kind of waited, and whether or not that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it's served us pretty good for the past however long.
I think that's the appeal and attraction of turkey, because it is like that traditional, just 101 or 110, whatever, and it's had such a long historic run with that. That's like, yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't change trends, and don't try to please everyone. But
so I think our goal, and I think a lot of the big distilleries have had to figure this out, the legacy ones, is like, how do you stay true to like what got you here, but still be relevant? Because it's not a time where, it's not 15 years ago where we know, like, we just have way better liquid than everybody else. Unless you're a legacy distillery, people have caught up. There's a million brands that are all doing really cool stuff. And so now it's not just competing against Heaven Hill or Beam or whoever, right? It's a bunch of small brands that are doing cool stuff too now. So while I think all the legacy distilleries have done a good job, remaining true to who they are, we're being forced to do new stuff. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Another question, and I mean, if this gets too personal or not, I kind of look at what your dad has kind of dropped tea leaves over the years, and you kind of read between the lines. It almost feels that he's like, I'm ready to get out of here, but I got to wait until Jimmy's really out of here to it. And then how does that make you feel, and what kind of shoes does that mean that you would have to fill?
I think the cool part about us three is that we're all pretty different from one another. And
are you more like Mimi?
I'm way more like Mimi. Yeah.
Mimi.
Yeah, we just called Jimmy Mimi, so Jimmy with the M. But I'm cut from the same cloth that Jimmy is. Like, I like a lot of the travel, and I love like the industry, not just the whiskey part, but like the whole industry.
Which is why you bar back.
Yeah, which is why I bar. Which kind of why I like to go into stuff like
people don't get that. It's like that's like, in order for someone to be bringing ice to your bartender at a major event, you got to love it.
I do love this industry. It's afforded me, everything. It's afforded me my career. It's afforded me my fiance. It's led me to like my best friends. And I kind of feel the same way that Jimmy does, that I've got so much out of it that I need to give a big piece of myself to it. And Dad's just different than me and Jimmy. He would rather be at the distillery, working in a lab, drinking his whiskey and then going home at the end of the day, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think he's actually had the hardest career of all of us, and one of the hardest careers for people like us, like family members or faces of brands or master distillers, because he had to follow Jimmy directly.
Yeah.
And Jimmy was so stuck in his ways that I think that there's this barrier there for Dad, because Dad wanted to try new stuff, and he did try new stuff, but has to be tough being the guy that has to try new stuff when the guy before is like, I hate new stuff. And luckily, both of them now, with all the stuff I'm doing, they're like, oh, okay, cool.
But if you look around the industry, that kind of like second generation from the legends, you've got Craig Beam after Parker, you got Fred No after Booker. I would say of that crop, of that kind of like second generation, your dad stands out as probably the most elite true distiller of everyone. Everyone's got their place, and everyone's great, don't get me wrong. But I think some of the things that Eddie's done in the last 15 years have been absolutely remarkable. I mean, my only beef with Wild Turkey has always been your packaging, y'all's inability to like pick a friggin' bottle and just stay with it over the course of time.
You haven't heard about our new packaging change? 101's going to change.
As I was to say, I was like,
Please
you heard it here first. Our Bourbon Pursuit.
I'm out.
Yeah.
That's a joke, by the way.
But like, I mean, y'all make such great whiskey, and that's all come under Eddie's, tenure.
Yeah.
And I think he's in the Hall of Fame. I think he has the respect of the entire industry.
He's like your favorite master distiller's favorite master distiller.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think that your dad, though, has always doesn't. I don't think your dad likes attention, and I think he's always
not in the same way that Jimmy does. For
yeah,
sure, yeah.
He's always wanted your grandpa to get the attention over him. Even in interviews, anytime I talk to him, if I want to ask a straight whiskey question, he's all over it. But when it's about the brand, he deflects it to be about his dad.
Totally.
So he's a very humble dude.
I think something that Dad doesn't get enough credit for, because this is not the route anymore that people take to become the master distiller, master blender, name on the bottle. He started rolling barrels. He started in the union, worked in the union for years, put himself through night school, because Jimmy wouldn't hire him out of the union. You had to have a college degree. Put himself through night school, got a college degree from Kentucky, like basically worked his way from the bottom man in the union all the way to warehouse manager, inventory manager over a couple decade period before Jimmy was like, okay, I'll start.
We pay attention to you.
Yeah, pay attention to you and letting you work in the lab. And that wasn't what it was for me. Jimmy gave me his notebooks on how to do it all like 1 month in. And a lot of the other people that I know that are master distillers and blenders, and this isn't the wrong way to go about it, but you graduate from college with a chemistry degree, or you get really involved in the marketing side, and then you don't roll barrels or stack cases or paint fences. You're not cutting grass during overtime hours on the weekends and stuff. And that's what Dad did. So I don't think he and people like that get enough credit, because I can be really good at blending, but there's stuff that like Dad knows that I'll never know, because I didn't have to fix the weed eater at the distillery, or
where's the weed eater string burst?
Jimmy a lot.
God, no,
I didn't have to Jimmy a lot to get into like the glass material goods warehouse, where like he's done everything.
Yeah. So you talk about the blending aspect of it, and like assume like you said, you get the notebook from Jimmy or your dad, and it's like years of processes and refinement, like knowing where to pull. But like I assume working at a place like Turkey, it's like, all right, we have our system, we know to pull barrels for here, for those, or that, this. What have you like looked at, as like the stuff you inherited from them or from the company, and then you're like, here's where I can carve my niche, like, through different barrel selection, whatever. What have you saw as like an opportunity where you can create something new and exciting that's, really just the same mash bill in many different warehouses and whatnots?
I think the cool thing for me, because Dad and Jimmy are not this, and this is what's allowed me to, I think, carve out a space, both like personally in the industry and the whiskey that we've been putting out and that I will keep putting out. I'm a whiskey nerd. Like, I'm the type of dude that listens to the podcast.
Oh,
no offense, but Jimmy and Dad aren't listening to the podcast.
Well, they're not my favorite anymore either. So.
And, like they don't care about new releases from other people, really, unless it's like, I want to sample this for competitive reasons. They both love the industry, but they, they're not, neither of them even use the internet really. And so I've got this viewpoint from a guy that started in the industry when it was starting to get cool. And I've grown up in this industry as a whiskey nerd that has everything from local mom and pop one-off distillery releases to the big guys stuff. And it allows me to know what our customers want, I think, a little bit more because I am one. And so the thing that I've got to do is look at all of our liquid that we've got aging on site and thinking like, man, I think this is cool. Are these other people going to think this is cool? When you look at like Russell's 15.
That's pretty cool. I'll take it.
It was pretty cool, right? And the thing about the liquid that I think like, the thing that's different between me and them, it was batch proofed at almost 160 proof. It was like 150 something proof, batch proof.
Jeez.
If you saw the color, that's why it was.
Oh, there's so many people that are like probably having their hearts broken right now because everybody.
I have so many questions.
All they want is hazmat. All right, but yeah, keep going. Let's break this down here in a second.
And you saw the color on it and stuff. That's why it was that color at like 117. But that it's the type of liquid that I think before me and there's a guy named Josh Call that I work with that's also kind of a whiskey nerd on the product development team. Before us, that probably just would have been rejected liquid for that type of a project because of the, it's just crazy. And
that was my whiskey of the year.
I know, I watched it. Somebody sent it to me and they're like, you should watch. I was like, sick.
Can I fast forward to the end?
Yeah.
Believe me, I would have fast forward to the end as well. It's like a lot of work.
But, there's stuff like that where I see the cool side of it from the consumer's eyes. And that helps me put together both what like dad is going to be okay with and think is really cool, but also like when I talk to my buddies that get obsessed with this kind of stuff, like, no way, you all are doing that. And that's kind of what I want is and you all know this because you've been to distilleries, there's like those old heads like Jimmy and Booker, they were all about consistency. And I do get that, which is why I will never try to change anything about like 101 or rare breed, anything like that. But man, when you're at a distillery and you get that one barrel or you find that one lot that's so special. Well, back in the day, nobody wanted to use it because, that doesn't taste like turkey or that doesn't taste like whatever. But today, I'm like, no, let me take these weird 7 barrels and put them together. And luckily, our company's been on board with that here the last couple of years and seems on board for the next 5 years. We got a bunch of cool stuff in the works. And I think that's like a viewpoint that I can bring that Dad and Jimmy probably didn't want to bring.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Booker and all them were like, here's my whiskey. If you don't like it, I think you're wrong.
That was actually their advertising.
Yeah.
Send it back to us. So on that 15 year, you mentioned it was 160 proof. That detail may have been put out there before, but that's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Tell me about like, cause your barrel entry proofs 115.
Yeah.
That's a huge increase.
Yeah,
so tell me about where those barrels were and what kind of.
They just loaded it with GNS and.
I hate to be like the person that says like it is what you think it is, but like everybody's like, oh, that's good Camp Nelson liquid. It is like the stuff that's happening out there at Camp Nelson right now has been pretty spectacular. Temperatures are higher out there. We're getting a whole lot of flavor extraction. Proofs are going up, and it's one of those things that you're always scared when you get that type of a high proof product. Like,
yeah,
is it going to be not only too hot, but is it just going to taste like wood?
Yeah.
Because the 15 was pretty oaky. I mean, it was good, but I can't imagine it at cash strength. It had to be.
It was intense. And I like when we even tried it, we all agreed, like, and I'm sure that you all dealt with this too when you're blending your all stuff or working with whoever is when you taste something, sometimes you're like, shit, we got to get out of a barrel today.
Yeah.
We need this to happen like this week. And I mean, that was one of those things we all tried and we knew like these are your best products. It's funny because like your very best products usually are the least amount of work because the whiskey just tastes really good. And it was one of those things we're all sitting in the lab, me, Dad, and Josh all look at each other like, holy, this needs to be toted today. Like, let's talk to warehouse team. And like by the end of the week, we need this in the bottling plant. because we knew it was on that line. It's especially for turkey. We're not known for like big oaky products like that, but we loved it. And then I love I've got the question like, well, how did you settle on 170? Is like, well, we have a range that we thought we were comfortable with, and we just tasted it
Till you got there.
every other proof point until we got to a place right around 118. We were like, man, this is good.
I can hear the whiskey nerds are shouting your name, not calling you a whiskey nerd because all they want is something over 140.
Well,
They'd be
But
like,
they don't know flavor.
but it's
yeah.
novelty, right? And that's the kind of weird thing about the consumer today is that it's novelty. That's what they're shooting for, is just high proof.
And it's one of those things like it is tough and it's tough for small brands and big brands, because if you do something that's like really weird, like you said, and super novel, there's pros and cons. Pro, you're going to get a lot of buzz. People are going to be all over it. Con,
The next time it's not 140, and
next
all of
time-
a sudden
yeah.
it's like, well,
and also,
we
if
really
it's
want
just
something
based
else
off
to
of novelty and not off flavor, well, then there's another part, especially our consumer base that are loyal turkey heads. Like you said, like a lot of people get turkey because I know what I'm going to get, right? Like turkey tastes like turkey. And so if we have something that's just novel and it's not necessarily like good, well, then that ruins the customer. The novel guy's only going to be there one time, unless next time it's 142 and then 144,
Yeah.
But if it's not good, then the guy that buys every single one of my LTOs might stop.
So you have such a range of warehouses. On one hand, you have warehouses that will take you up to 160 proof. On the other hand, you have some that will, those dirt floor warehouses where it'll drop down to like 86 proof. What are you doing with those? And for those listening and aren't aware, sometimes in certain conditions, the proof will go down in a barrel, and it's usually those dirt floor warehouses. And you have some of those, and you guys are kind of famous for those 86 proofers. Their actual barrel strength at 86 proof. And by the way, no one ever believes you when they're out there like that.
Oh, no.
But what do you do with those barrels that are dropping in proof in the wild turkey portfolio?
You blend them with 160, and all of a sudden you got 101.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, a lot of those they're being used in blended liquid right now.
But they're so good.
And some of them are really good. It's like I've got a 8-year-old, it's 9-year-old now, rye barrel sitting up in warehouse that I let people try on sometimes. And it's below 100 proof, and that just happens on those first floors. And like Fred's saying, in like warehouse like A through D that were built before Prohibition or right after, or over there at McBrayer, our warehouse is over there next to Four Roses. Almost all this stuff, because some of those even have that like weird underground half rick thing going on. All those drop real low. They're good. Some of them are really good. The issue is like we've got all these labels. We don't have a label to put them in yet. Will there be one ever? I don't know, because I agree with you that when you find a really good like 90 proof barrel proof, it's really cool. And it doesn't taste like your typical 90 proof in a bottle.
Yeah.
It does have mouthfeel. It is big and bold in flavor in a way that I think proof down 90s and 80s might not be. But I don't know.
Well, this
It's
is
an interesting thing you brought up.
This is when you're going to take the helm here soon, and you can start saying,
That's right.
well, Russell's, it's always been great at 110, but now we're going to have whatever barrel strength it is, and it's just going to be printed on the label. And
that's
I'm pretty
definitely
sure
like,
nobody's going to be mad about that.
Oh, I agree. One of my ultimate, and the company knows this, and anybody that's ever listened to me knows this. Like, I love Jimmy's old products. I mean, everybody does. But that's what I grew up on. I'm very nostalgic for him. And like my favorite thing he ever did, because it's so like opposite of Jimmy, because he's all about consistency. He's all about, was that donut series he did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And with that Kentucky Legend, that's what it's called, but it looks like it's a really ugly packaging. We had some of the ugliest packaging ever.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's got this nostalgic feel to it.
It does.
Yeah.
But if you took it to like a person that like does product design, they make, what is it?
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't fit into
It's like a giant perfume bottle, but
it's like a
it is-
cognac or something.
Exactly. It does taste, all of them are really good, and they range from like 100 and something, like low hundreds, all the way up to like the 110s. And it would be cool, I think, to do like you're saying, we have as low as 90 proof, barrel proof. We have as high as that I know of over in Camp Nelson, 140 and above right now. It would be cool to do something like donut. But I mean, that's a huge project, a huge undertaking that would take years, but it would be cool to showcase the type of whiskey you can get when you do have, 40 rick houses and 900,000 barrels, and you have all different kinds of stuff.
I'm sure you're young enough. You'll find new ways to throw ideas in the bucket. And
Yeah, I've
figure
only
out
been
what-
around 15 years now. Jimmy's been around 71, so I've got a long way to go.
Gosh.
until you get some voting power. In
That's
there.
right, yeah.
So last year y'all came, y'all brought back 8-year 101 proof,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of lit the bourbon community up, by storm. Take us through that process of what you all were thinking, why you all decided to bring it back, and where does it stand for the future, and as well as the regular 101.
Yeah, sure thing. So the 8-year-old, actually 70th came before we even talked about the 8-year-old coming back. Because we had 8-year-old as an export product, and that's all it was planned on being. And it's like, I've heard just about everybody under the sun. And of course they're right. Like, well, why did they do it now? It just seems like an obvious thing that should have always been around. And like, yeah, probably. Sometimes it does take a little convincing or a little proof of concept. And that's what the 70th was for us. So the 70th was not supposed to be like an intro to the 8-year-old. It was one of those things that they had tasked us to work on. And I loved working on the 70th. Same reason I loved working on Generations. It's fun to try to find what Jimmy likes.
Mm.
And I think I know my granddad's profile real well because we have similar favorite flavors in whiskey, and got to do that for him, which I think the 70th tastes more like 101 plus than the 8-year-old does. I think 8-year-old has kind of its own thing going on.
See, there's a new label right there, 101 plus.
There you go.
See, we're already starting.
Ooh.
But
Nice.
uh,
Make sure
when-
Kenny gets a vig on that.
Yeah, I was about
I
to
will.
say. I was like, whatever you get paid, I want double that.
I got you. And then when we did that, and of course it took off, and everybody was going crazy for a multitude of reasons. And that's why I really like the 8-year-old 101 coming back. I told people that anybody that would listen, the reason the 70th was so cool to me is because that's pure Jimmy. It was an 8-year-old product. It was not a 15-year-old product. It was like $40-something. It wasn't $150 or $250. That's what Jimmy's all about. He still, you know him. He lives in a tiny little house. He still has a 98 Ford Ranger, He likes a $45 8-year-old bottle. He's not buying Russell's 13 or 15 or Master's Keeps. And so we were so excited to put it out. He loved it. And then it, obviously, because of the price point and the liquid, it went crazy. And then our company's like, oh, wow, that went crazy. Maybe we should bring back the 8-year-old like we've talked about in the past. And of course, me, Dad, and Jimmy are like, yeah, that'd be awesome.
The whole time.
I'm tired of having to buy it at the liquor store here in town that sells export stuff. And then
You're the best customer now. They just lost it.
that's right. They've lost a lot of us. And then, of course, they survey customers, and they're all excited. And we bring people in to talk about it, and they're all excited. And yeah, who the hell's not going to like affordable? And that's something that legacy distilleries have figured out, and that I like when you look in, because Beam's brought age statements back. A lot of people have. Guess what people really like at the end of the day, if they're like an average consumer? They like affordable whiskey that tastes good and has good stats. And if you can do all that, then you're going to win. And we were able to do that. Now, as far as like normal 101 and 8-year-old, because of course, even if you make, and we know, and Fred knows this because he's seen us change the label 400 times. Every time we change the label, they think the product's different, much less when there's a new product put in. Normal 101's not going away. They're going to sit on shelf right together. 8-year-old 101 also, like, and I know because I get caught up in this too, please don't have FOMO and like buy secondary priced 8-year-old 101. That's
There'll
silly.
be plenty of it to go
There's going
around.
to be plenty. And it's not even like, when we do limited products like a 13 or 15, that's not on a normal bottling schedule. That's a once or twice a year thing when we have the liquid. 8-year-old 101, if you were to look at our bottling schedule, it's on that schedule just like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't do exactly like a once-a-month schedule, but close. So it's not, it's sold out in Kentucky supposedly in 3 days. But that's just because this was just the first distribution of it, and it's going to be pretty regularly available. So if you can't find it now, just wait. The people that are buying cases of it to flip or whatever they're doing, hopefully everybody's buying it to drink because it's a $40-something bottle. But just wait, you'll get it.
A while back, Kentucky Spirit got cut back a little bit. Are there any other brands that are maybe on the chopping block in the portfolio, like Russell's 10 or the Rise or anything?
Nothing's on the chopping block.
I was like, you probably can't talk about Russell's Rye being on the chopping block. Not with this guy here. It's like,
I know. It's like
he'll be the savior of it.
Nothing's on the chop. Yeah. No kidding. Nothing's on the chop. Yeah. If anything, let's make more.
It's like he'll be on the cross with rye behind him, right? That's what it's going to be like.
But nothing's on the chopping block or anything right now. I would say our biggest thing we're doing with at the distillery, we need more liquid than we currently have.
Well, you did you acquired Wilderness Trail not too long ago. Same initials.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
same initials.
Is that liquid working its way into Wild Turkey at all?
No. Who knows in the future, to be honest?
Which means yes.
Well, I think there's there's great opportunity there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we've had this weird dichotomy inside of American whiskey that you don't have a lot of collaborations between distilleries, right? It's like, yes, by personality, by talking to people, yeah, there's a lot of corroboration, I guess you could say, but I can maybe 5 times on my hand how many times there's been collaborations between distilleries where they blend each other's liquid together.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
It's very rare, right? And so this is an opportunity where they can start seeing that because they can start pulling stocks.
I mean, it's good
and making
whiskey,
something
so
different.
The biggest issue for us,
it'd work.
because I mean, let me tell you, when that purchase was made, we tried the liquid, like a lot of it, and I'm sure that was one of the reasons why they had us giving opinions on the liquid. It's so different than what we do as far as flavor profile and age and even the process.
Do they supply your yeast for you too?
They do not.
Oh, there we go.
They don't. But for right now, anything like that would probably be years and years in the future. Like it would be one of those things that if it ever went, I don't know if we could use the liquid that they currently make just because it's so different. And has Wild Turkey been to the Wilderness Trail facilities to try to get it more dialed into the other WT way? I think right now, it's more of just them just trying to figure out their path under Campari.
Just kind of going parallel at this point.
Yeah, just going parallel at this point until they figure out, I think, exactly what the future looks like for them. I do really like their whiskey. They had a 7-year-old rye that I had at a visitor center there for a while, and God, it was good. And I've had a few samples of some older stuff that they've just got aging right now that's really good. And I think they do some really interesting stuff over there. I mean, anybody that knows Pat knows he's one of the sharpest people in our industry. And I'll tell you one thing that I wish we would take from them. They've got a lot of really cool efficiency measures that they have figured out that like legacy distilleries just don't do or couldn't do based off of their old distillery operations. And I'm hoping that we'll take some of that because that's some stuff that I think we could use some help with.
Yeah.
Well, you have a label in the portfolio that was a mistake and ended up being like really good. What was it called? Forgiven?
Oh, Forgiven. Yeah.
I mean, that's a place where
actually, that's not a bad idea.
You could bring that back in there, but that was
through the Rye and our bourbon.
Yeah, that was an amazing brand. Y'all just kind of kicked it to the curb.
Yeah, it was one of those weird things that it was.
It just took them that long to sell through it. That's why.
Yeah, something like that.
Those are big batches.
Like the actual product was initially a mistake. Like that story is true.
Absolutely.
Obviously, they didn't just take that liquid. They did tweak it a little bit before they put it into a bottle. The lady that made that mistake and actually dumped rye and bourbon together to do it, she still works there. She no longer works in the tank room. She does grain intake now.
That's one less fat finger that you have to worry about there.
And so, and then we did that Unforgotten, but it was almost one of those things like the product came out and it was like, didn't do anything at first. They did way better than the company thought it was gonna, but they didn't really know what to do with it. Yeah. I actually think if Forgiven was to happen like in the last few years, it probably would have been a permanent edition. Cause back then, like I remember our marketing team even talking about like, there was like one Boo Rye on the market, maybe 2 of them.
West,
like, and that was seen as like a weird, the industry's come so far. A bourbon and rye mixed together. It was like, whoa.
We don't want to be on the American whiskey shelves.
Yeah. much less everything that people make today. And I just think that they didn't really know what they had. And it's funny because then we did an LTO like in memory with Unforgotten. So I think if it would have happened in the last couple of years, that it'd still be around. But I agree with you; it was a super cool product.
Just saying, there's a chance there for a WT squared. Get the Wilderness,
There you go.
get the Wilderness Trail rye and some Wild Turkey bourbon, blend it together, put it in the Forgiven,
Yeah.
or something like that.
So you get paid for that one.
Yeah.
I get paid for the
No,
other one.
no.
I'm waiting for Ryan's good idea to come.
Donate
in.
my
you
go.
my share to charity.
So Kenny
I'm selfish.
mentioned you would be crucified if, something happened to rye whiskey. We know you're passionate about rye whiskey. I am too. But it seems, at least from our perspective, that rye whiskey is a much harder sell than bourbon. Where do you...
It's a-
Brother, it's not.
It's a
it's
constant
not
uphill battle.
It's not your perception. It is objectively
Well, it's fact.
fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
We both know because we both sell bourbon and rye whiskey. One is easier to sell than the other, even if the quality's the same. And it's one of those things that I've just come to terms with, that rye in my lifetime is probably never going to be able to compete with bourbon. But I love rye whiskey. I oftentimes do prefer it if the quality is the same in both products. And I think that there's still a lot of room in the rye side of things to experiment with. And especially with age, it's like, besides the stuff up in Alberta and some smaller companies have done, I want, I hopefully, and I've heard some whispering,
I know.
so maybe I want some extra aged
'Cause
Kentucky or Kentucky rye whiskey.
Yeah, because it does seem like you don't... I mean, a long time ago, you had those Rittenhouse ryes from Heaven Hill that had those crazy high...
The 21,
age
22,
statements.
and 23. Yeah.
But you never really seen that from... And I know they got the inventory to do it. And it's like, I think that's what it's going to take, though, to kind of get people like, oh, we got a 15-year, 17-year turkey rye whiskey. Like, that might get them to try it. And then they might... I don't know. It just seems like there's something that can be done.
Well, they got to be doing rye whiskey more than 3 days a year now to be able to take care of that demand as it comes, right?
Yeah,
I think that was like one of the things way back in the day is that
we
you
did
really-
2 days a year.
2 days a year. Yeah.
But we've got a lot of good rye sitting down. If you're a rye fan, like, it's one of those things, people know me as the rye guy. And so they're like, oh, I bet the next 7 LTOs. And no, that's not how it works, dude.
You don't get to make that sole decision.
No, well, they would kill me. And I would kill myself because that's just like not smart. But you will see, some more rye. And I've already had my hand in it. There would be no, and Dad would tell you this, there would be no Triumph. There would be no Cornerstone if I wasn't around. Because
Yeah.
Cornerstone happened because of rye barrels that me and Dad, and eventually like Joanne and Benny, who's here, our other brand ambassador, and friends and family, everybody tried them. You all tried some of those rye barrels that used to sit up there in front of A that were like sister barrels to Cornerstone.
Yeah.
And we never did rye LTOs.
I mean, even the
I convinced
standard,
Dad.
wild turkey rye, the rare breed rye, they're fantastic.
Oh, I love the rare breed rye. I actually think that that's the most underrated product in our whole portfolio lineup. But it's one of those things when a big brand like us has dozens of products maybe throughout the year, and some stuff's going to slip through the cracks. But I think rare breed rye is the one thing that I don't see people clamoring for that I think is awesome.
Yeah. One day people will jump on. It'll be after our lifetime.
That's
what it's
it'll be
gonna
like Kentucky Spirit. We'll
You got to take it away from people to want
yeah.
it.
But it's funny how that works, and y'all are aware of this. We would hear like people from certain states, wow, Spirit's going crazy. And I'm like, what? And then you look at the numbers, you're selling about the same amount. But when you only have it available like 2 or 3 times a year, and then people buy it all at once instead of just trickling out through the whole year, like, it makes everybody else a little happier. So
Yeah. Get those spikes, get those
Yeah.
bumps.
Yeah, that's the
people hear allocation, and it
the
doesn't
Van
matter if
Winkle
they-
wave right there.
It's
Very much so. And so another question I'd ask him, about you and, your day to day and your journey here. Your dad and your grandpa were more on the distillation side. You have a different title as
Totally.
associate master blender. So at what point are you done with the distillation? You're like, listen, I got a team that takes care of that. I really don't care. I'm focusing all over here. And sort of where does that put you in sort of like, what are you doing because of that?
Yeah. So I'll answer the master distiller thing because I just think it's really interesting. Master distiller title is weird because it's not really a historic title. right? Like Jimmy wasn't called master distiller for the vast majority of his career. He was like plant manager, is what his title was.
That's my title around
And
here.
today, there you go.
Give Kenny 5 things you've done the past week.
And then
Oh boy.
today, the title is used by a lot of brands. Most brands have a master distiller. It's hard to find somebody that distills because a lot of master distillers don't have a distillery. A lot of master distillers like Dad and Jimmy have a distillery that's automated.
Yeah.
And so like it's almost more of a historic thing now where like this guy's in charge of the production. Which, that would be my ultimate goal is to be in charge of the, like Dad and Jimmy have been over the years, at least have final say on what's going on. But where all product development's happening now is blending.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because that's the difference is like production and product development are two different things,
Yeah.
right? And so you can't dedicate enough time to be able to take care of both of them. So you've got to either be focused on, hey, we're going to be tasting, we're doing product development, it's LTOs, it's whatever, this is what's getting me on the road, this is what people care about, versus, all right, I got to know about pH levels and corn content and sugars. And it's like, at what point do you just say, all right, I need to choose a path?
Most modern distilleries now have both, right? It's like back in the day, you just had Jimmy or whoever. And he was not a product developer 95 to 99% of his career. He made sure that the whiskey tasted good off the still and going into the barrel. And then he made sure one-on-one tasted right. And that was his job, right? It wasn't until we had more than just 2 or 3 little brands that we really needed more than Jimmy, but eventually we did. Now everybody does, right? Almost every major distillery probably in the world, you have somebody that does the day-to-day, then you have somebody that focuses on the liquid. And you do need both. You can't, it's like I have a lot of, and I'm sure you all get this a lot too. I have a lot of friends or just people that I've met. They're like, I want to start my own place.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
say, don't do it.
I'm like,
do it.
wait, yeah, that's what I tell them too. No. But then if they're determined, I will tell them, hey, I know there'll be a lot of people that want to be your guy or your gal. If you meet somebody and they tell you, you only need me, don't hire that person. Because someone can't do, if they're going to run a distillery, you can't do the day-to-day and the product development and everything else that goes in with being the face of a brand. So I think my time and my effort is probably better spent blending because I have faith that our people are going to do a good job before it goes into the barrel. Like I'm tasting distillate some too and that type of thing, but like Steve Higgins runs our stills on first shift. He's been there for 50-something years. He knows more than me.
Oh, yeah. Steve won't fuck it up. Then you're good. Good job, Steve.
He knows more than me. He's been running those stills, before I was born. So I trust that team to do that. And then I'm in a great place now where I get to blend all this awesome aged liquid that Dad and Jimmy and the team put together. And luckily, that's what I'm going to get to do for hopefully my career.
We'll see.
Deal with all this delicious liquid.
Yeah, I mean, you had a good luck streak so far here. But
I have, yeah.
Kind of talk about when you are doing product development, who's involved with that, and is it you? At what point is your dad in there, or is it just kind of like do you still have to get final sign off, or is it like Bruce? I'm the associate. I'm going to go ahead and lead the charge here because there's nobody here with the master blender title.
Yeah. So it all depends on the project. So something like Russell's 15 or like this year's 13.
Well, it sounds like you got to keep it out of their hands anyway because they wouldn't approve it until it's ready.
Yeah, sometimes. If we know we're working on a project, from start to finish, this is how it happens. There's ideation, and then planning, and then once we've decided on the direction we want to go, then me or Josh, who's the guy Josh Call that works in our product development team. Even though there's a big team, he's the wild turkey guy. One of us will reach out to warehouse, we'll get samples, sit in, and start fooling with the samples. And then me or him will set up, pre-blends to sample through. And then usually we'll go through a round or 2 of those and try to focus in on the liquid before we bring Dad in. Because the thing about Dad, and him and Jimmy both share this, they're very different. But when it comes to whiskey, they are not going to sugarcoat what they think about your whiskey. Which is why I've told buddies of mine, like, don't you ask Dad what he thinks. Unless you're ready to hear it, because he's going to tell you, because I've dealt with that. And so we'll usually get it to where we think it's in a pretty good place. And then that's when Dad comes in. And then total, we usually have 4 people working on the projects, me and Josh doing the legwork from start to finish. And then we have Dad, and then the head of kind of North American product development, a guy named Jeremy Saunders, that used to work over for Diageo. All four of us will go through and try it, and then we present that liquid to the company. And then it's not my job to come up with, except for one thing that's specifically my thing. My job's not to come up with the packaging or the marketing, and so we send the team the liquid, and then they put it into a pretty package and market it. And
but
from start to finish, it's me now with Josh. Good. And it's been awesome because Dad he's very supportive. He's been willing to get into the lab and give me advice when I need it, but also kind of like let me scrape my knee and let me figure it out myself if he thinks that's what I need.
Well, I was about to say is he going to follow the same route as Bill Samuels? Because Bill said he had to come out with Maker's 46 to put his signature on it before Rob was taking over and going to take that signature
That's
off.
Funny. Yes, I've heard him say that too. Nobody's a better storyteller than Bill.
There was some truth in that one.
Oh, I guarantee you there.
Yeah, that was real fear.
That's funny. To be honest, Dad, Jimmy have both been real cool about I don't care if you put your name on everything. As long as Jimmy would be like, as long as it's not rare breed or 101, he doesn't even care about all the stuff Dad does or that I want to do. But you'll see, and it's going to start this year. My name's going to be on the Master's Keep this year with Dad. And,
that's cool.
I've got a limited edition series that I've been working on.
Nice.
And you'll know when you see it.
What's it called?
I can't tell you that.
What's it start with?
Yeah.
It's actually going to be his handprint with him just doing these on the outside, like with kids, what they're doing. Yeah, doing their own kind of turkey handprints, right?
That's actually a good idea.
So can you not tell us because you guys are still figuring out the name?
Oh, no, we're not figuring out the name.
You know the name?
I know the name.
Oh, so, you could tell us this.
Just wait for Coming Whiskey.
That's right. Wait for Coming Whiskey. And then, and it's so funny because every time it's on Coming Whiskey, there's people on the company side of there like, what?
How'd that get leaked?
Yeah.
I do have a question about that.
But you'll know when you see it. Exactly. Because you'll be like, oh, dang, he is a whiskey nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from a product development side, so are you presenting concepts that these are potential barrels or whiskeys that could become something? And then from there, the marketing team says, okay, we have this product. We're going to go create a story.
That's a good question.
Or is it they're like, hey, Bruce, we have this idea. Go make it happen. How does that?
Both.
Gotcha.
So sometimes they will come up with a pitch essentially for a product. And if we're on board, then we try to work with the liquid we have to meet that vision. That's a little bit more uncommon. But it has happened over the years where and a lot of times it will be especially export or GTR. It is those people know that stuff way better than we do.
What's DTR real quick?
Global Travel Retail.
Okay,
GTR.
gotcha.
Yeah. Airport bottles.
GTR. I think you said DTR.
No,
GTR.
GTR.
We're down to what?
When you go in those shops in the airport and it smells like perfume in there.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a little.
And then
they
have non-chill filtered rare breed and we don't for some reason. That type of stuff happens a lot with those. But for my LTO series that I've been working on, I had a buddy of mine that worked on the marketing team. And this is the other way it can work. He's like, hey, if you come up with a deck and you pitch this, because I'd already told him my idea, and he's like, and you tell them exactly what you told me, we'll run with your idea. And so that's a lot of how it's worked with Dad on Master's Keep or me with this new series, or Russell's 13 and 15. Those are just things that we wanted to do. And then and this is something that's actually easier to do because of the community now around bourbon. It's look at all these people that comment on every post. They want this. We can do this. And then they will figure out how to market it from there. And my job, I think one of my jobs is to make their job very easy and to make them not have to work as hard. And I don't want them working very hard because if they're having to over market a product, we didn't do a good job. And so I think our most successful stuff is when you look at 13 or 15 or 17-year-old bottle of Bond or Russell's 98 or all these, the marketing story is man, this is good. And then that's
about it. That's all we got.
When is the Aperol finished turkey barrel going to come?
Dang, I do it. I'll share this because it's not coming out.
Campari finish.
You could. I actually really like.
But Aperol's not your product.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
They
With
own
Aperol?
Aperol.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're making money on
That,
those spritzes.
that pays the bills.
Yeah, it does.
That Campari was its competitor.
No,
No, they're different
no.
products.
And Aperol's just a lower proof version of it.
And Aperol is what everybody's drinking at brunch on Sundays.
Oh,
and
totally.
Yeah, the
By the
Aperol
pitcher.
spritz,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Yep. We did. It doesn't have anything to do with Aperol or Campari, but we did fool around with like a herbal kind of infusion thing at one time. When we were doing some product development work on Long Branch way back in the day, we thought we would do something with sage, and it actually was one of the cooler things we ever did. It just, I don't know who would want it because it did end up just tasting like a modifier. And it'd be like, it was pretty well aged whiskey, and it's like nobody's gonna buy $50 dollar bottles of modifier.
Probably not.
No,
Probably
but
not.
it was really cool.
I think that would damage your reputation too.
Oh, it would. And
Yeah.
and that's a big part of working for a brand like ours is there's a bunch of cool stuff that I would want to do. But there is a brand image and there is a legacy and there's a history attached, especially on the turkey side, that you always have to be aware of.
And so one of the other things that kind of caught fire a little bit, I don't know, a couple months last year, whenever it was, is people were losing their shit over thinking that 15-year barrels were getting dumped into Russell's 10 and they were searching for like letter
particular
codes.
batches. Yeah,
That batch is LLME.
LL.
I will
Well, okay,
not
first
confirm
off,
or deny.
Who leaked the information on that?
Nobody.
You know?
David
Nobody.
Jennings.
Dave Jennings, he's
Yeah.
the only one.
This was actually something that, because I don't want to get into it too much, but I can talk about this a little bit because it's
Probably all they're cleared out across the country at this point.
yeah, it's sold out and something did happen. So it's one of those things. It's usually, there is a leak from us usually if something's going on. And I know the 2 or 3 people at our distillery that leak it.
Oh, you know the molds.
I know them. I do. 'Cause I'm
Jimmy
buddies
and
with-
Eddie.
Yeah.
You said earlier they don't use the internet, right?
That's right,
So yeah, they're
Jimmy
they,
really has a secret internet hookup.
I was going to say he's like putting on a carrier pigeon's leg and just like fly
That'd be
little one.
funny.
He's one of the top redditors out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And he's like dogging our product all the time or something like that. He's a troll on the internet. But we, when there's products like 101, Russell's 10, products that are known products, we have a system in place on how they're supposed to be blended, where the liquid comes from. We're not as involved, right? Unless, like, it's one of those things, if product development, like me or Josh or Dad or anybody like that is getting asked to work on normal products, it's because they're trying to figure something out, right? The normal production method or process method is not working out, so they need help. And I was telling somebody the other day, they're like, well, how'd that get passed through? I was like, well, their job in quality is if it meets a certain level of quality, they approve it. And let me tell you, I bet that one approved it. And it was something that we actually saw online before we knew anything about LLME.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so we started to see some things. Now, there might have been a leak at our bottling plant, right? Because there's people that work in our distillery that are nerds and that know the other nerds and will text, hey. And so I don't know if that's how it got out, but then a bunch of people were claiming it was older. And then David wrote something about him thinking it was a specific age. And I don't want to get into exactly what it is, but I will say if you have bottles of LLME, I bet it tastes really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
About
After
Yeah.
David
Well,
Jennings.
After
No.
David Jennings.
You heard it here like
You've heard
4
it here
million
like 4
factually.
million back.
Yeah.
It's been long gone.
Because
Yeah.
I had people sending me pictures. Like, it was funny because like the liquor store people didn't understand it. So I would get like videos and pictures from buddies of mine. They're like, hey, this guy just came in here and bought 2 cases of Russell's 10 and said one of them special, said I saved some. I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, maybe. I've got a couple bottles stashed away.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I called in a favor.
One last question. As you're doing product development, and y'all came out with Russell's 15 and whatnot, I assume there might be a 16 or 17, speculate. Where do you think turkey kind of peaks at that, what age is like, all right, it's just too far gone and we don't even want to age stuff this high?
Typically, it is right around 15 years old, like 14 to 17. Could we go longer? Of course we could, because we can manipulate barrels, right? You put them down, you put them in a palletized. You could stick them in a pallet, not in a rick house. You could stick them on the bottom floor of A, where it gets real cool and the proofs go way down. And so it slowed down the aging process. For us, though, 14 to 17, and when you look at especially modern turkey releases that get all the hype, 17-year-old bottle in the bond, the first Master's Keep was 17 years old, Russell's 15, Russell's 98, Russell's 13 even. which had that older liquid in it. So the overall blend was really about 15 or 16. That's our, when we're aging stuff right and it all turns out, I think that's like the ultimate peak. And then it does usually get worse from there. I tell people anytime they'll listen, the oldest whiskey we've got around right now is in the mid-20s. The worst whiskey we've got by far right now is in the mid-20s. And it's not much of it. It's just a handful of barrels that we've fooling around with basically for experimental purposes. But man, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's real bad.
I got one more personal question that'll kind of wrap it up here. You know, you'd mentioned earlier that you had just found your fiance through the industry,
Yeah.
everything like that. What's her reaction been knowing that, you know, you've become kind of almost like you have a status in this industry? People care about what you say. It holds weight. You are next in line if you were there a kingship to the throne. Like, what has she said to that? Or is because I'm sure you go out, you live here in Louisville, I'm sure you go out to places and people are like, oh, it's Bruce, it's Bruce, it's Bruce. Is she like, oh, Jesus, here we go again? Or is she like, it's just like, you know, proud soon-to-be wifey moment?
She is very proud.
They haven't been together long enough. Can
Yeah.
Give it a few more years, and the eye rolls will start.
She is very proud, but she also is like, she makes fun of me a lot. Like, she'll tell her friends, she's like, you all don't know how famous Bruce is to nerdy 50-year-old dads. I'm like, heck yeah. But no, she's super proud. She's so supportive. And she was in the industry. So we met. She was a bartender at the time. And we met at an event that we were doing at the distillery. And we became close friends and then eventually started dating a little bit longer down the line. But it's almost one of those things that I saw kind of like what my mom and my grandmother had to deal with. And they're both super supportive, but it's one of the parts of being us and just being, y'all deal with this now with your own bread. And I know Fred has to deal with this because I've literally seen people bother him.
Smell those
in person
50-year-old
in Louisville.
men.
It's, if you're going to do this stuff, you have to give a piece of yourself to the industry. And that's just what it is. When you do the podcast or when you're Fred and do all the stuff that he does, or now that you all have your own brand, you don't get to kind of just be a normal person anonymously out in the world. When you're at a bar, you have to do the bit, right?
You're always on the clock.
And I'm so lucky to have somebody that doesn't get too fed up with me about it. Because, yeah, when we go out, if we're at North of Bourbon, somebody's going to come up and say something to me. You know what I mean? Or if I'm drinking at the bar, somebody's going to come up and say something. And she's very gracious because it's like one of those things that Jimmy beat into me. You talk to that person because they allow us to do what we do. So if they want to sit there and talk to you about 30 minutes, who cares? Sit there and talk to them for 30 minutes. And you know, I do. I enjoy that part of it.
Well, I'm glad we can end it on that kind of note. And last one, since you are here in Louisville, knowing that we have a whole lot of people that listen to the show, they come here, they stay in Louisville, they want to do different things. What's the best restaurant? Where should they make reservations to? What's your favorite right now?
My favorite restaurant in town right now? Man, that's tough. I'll give you two that I'm really into at the moment. One is Mish Mish.
I knew it.
I knew it.
It's
It's
in
number
Louisville.
one right
That's
now.
my number
If
one.
you're just talking about the I'm going to go to a place and this food's going to taste the best. Right now, I think it's Mish Mish. It's blown me away every time I've been in there.
You got to get reservations
Way in advance.
weeks ahead of advance.
Yeah.
Or if you can pull off the get there right when they open, then you might be able to sit at the bar. We've done that a couple times because we just live like 2 blocks away. And then on top of that, I want to give a shout out to Inso.
Yeah,
it's
just
not too far away
yeah.
from here. They
Yeah.
opened back up again. And I just think Lawrence, the chef, they both there and at North of Bourbon, good buddy of mine. And he's a good buddy of mine because I love the guy, but also he cooks really good food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm a big
awesome.
fan of him and what they do. So those
Yeah.
would be the two places.
And that's stumbling distance right here from Pursuit HQ.
It is.
Man,
And from where I live. So that's why, both are great.
There we go. Well, I'm glad to have you as a neighbor over here as well. But Bruce, thank you so much again for coming on the show today,
Thank you,
giving
guys.
us a little insight into product development, a little bit of your personal side too. It's always great to just have you on and kind of just talk about just random things.
And I will say, if you all get a chance, when these guys get their place open up down there in downtown Louisville, check it out.
I appreciate it.
I've already seen, they've got a bunch of cool stuff going whiskey-wise and a bunch of cool swag. And from what I heard you all talking about about the place a little bit over the last year or two, and then when I saw y'all at that Jim Gaffigan comedy thing, the place sounds awesome. And I think it's going to be, it's something that will be really unique because it'll be the whiskey side, but also like the Pursuit podcast side of things. I think it's going to be kind of a one of a kind thing here in town.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're excited.
Yeah, we're excited. You know, we've got to find our angle. You've got years of lineage and stuff like that, and it's always good to have these different viewpoints on what happens in the sort of this world of whiskey. And you know, you come from huge stocks and great names and stuff like that, and I appreciate the giving us the little bit of the nudge there too. I'm really excited to open up our doors, and we'll get down there eventually.
I can't wait. I'll be there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Again,
After Mish Mish.
Yeah, after
That's
Mish
right.
Mish. Yeah, it sounds like we all just need to make a reservation for Mish Mish at this point. But again, Bruce, thanks again for coming on the show. If people want to know more about you, follow on Instagram. How do they do it?
You can find me on Instagram at Russell's Rye Guy. You can follow all the Wild Turkey pages. What I will tell you is please feel free to reach out. If you're a whiskey nerd or a whiskey head and you need recommendations in Louisville, or if you want to hit us up to try to find Jimmy. By the way, if you want to see Jimmy at the Visitor Center, we're not open Mondays and Tuesdays, and he usually gets in about 2 p.m. So, but yeah, anything y'all need, just reach out or come visit us. Me or Jimmy One will be there.
I'm glad you said that because remember last time I think you were on, we talked about when Jimmy was going to be at the Visitor Center.
Yeah.
That set the schedule for people that are like, that's like, I planned my trip at Wild Turkey around knowing when he's going to be at the Visitor Center. So there you go. There's the new updated schedule.
Also, Bruce has samples of his secret project for you. Just hit him up.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just got to bother him at dinner. You know, he's probably got him in his pocket anyway.
Yeah.
Just buy him dinner.
You see the look he gave me?
I know. He's
Awesome.
like, come on, Fred. Well, thank you again, Bruce. Make sure you follow him. Follow everything Bourbon Pursuit's doing on all the socials. Follow our good buddy Fred Minnick over here. And if you like the show, want to help support the show and everything that we're doing over here at Bourbon Pursuit, you can do it on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.